Welcome to the Swing Trading with Cycles channel. It's November 2nd, Wednesday night. It's after the Fed announcement, the November Fed meeting, I should say. We have the non-farm payroll coming up on Friday, so still more volatility ahead. But we still got some really important price action that we're going to review now. We're going to look at the precious metals tonight. We also have a video about the broader markets, looking at the major indices. We've got uranium, and we'll also do a little bit of an update on the dollar. That's important. So everything is trying to do this now, or I should say the risk assets are like trying to do this little reversal here. So, and this is the what will become the Thursday candle. But if you think about what happened today with the Fed meeting, my God, look at this, right? Like we had this big move up. At one point, this is the gold chart, the daily chart. At one point, this was a big, beautiful green candle, right? And then it just failed and then went red. Like, how do we know that, right? Like, well, we know that because it's a red candle, so it means it opened here. And at some point, it was all the way up here. So it was a nice, big, green candle again. But then it pulled back. And then once it went below this level here, that made it red. And now we made a new low tonight, but we're trying to reverse up. But now we're coming back down, kind of creating a doji-like candle. This looks like it's just kind of building a bear flag, essentially. And this is day 9 off of this swing low on day 18. So it's a question of like, was this an early daily cycle low, and this is a feeble rally, or is this all part of the same daily cycle decline? This is where I always like to say that is kind of irrelevant, because the real question you're asking is, are we in a downtrend? And the answer is yes. That's actually very, very clear. That's a swing high, that's a swing high, that's a swing high. What do you notice about those highs? They're all lower. This high, right, is lower than this one. This one is lower than that one, right? So the only thing that could get us to have a trend reversal at this point is a high above here. Right, we need to go above the high of this candle, and that is 1669.52. Really, really simple. That's like $30 from here, which I mean isn't a huge amount in absolute terms, but when you look at the sort of depth of the candle, definitely is a little bit of a tough hill to climb. And if we look at the weekly chart, so we appear to be on week 15 maybe. We've had this kind of double bottom structure, so week 10, and then we had week 11, 12, and then week 13. So week 10 and week 13 kind of formed a double bottom. Now it's a question of, does that hold, right? That's the 1615 level, right? This was a slight higher low. We'll see. Does it hold? I suspect it doesn't, because I suspect we're in the 8-year cycle decline. You can see we've had 7 red months in a row. Everyone's been talking about this, and I've said multiple times, it's unlikely that you would just get a decline in a straight line. At some point we're going to need to make a higher low, so something like that, right? Even if we're going to do something like that, I'm not saying we're getting exactly these price levels. I'm not saying we're going to 1250 necessarily. But the point is, at some point, we'll get some kind of rally, even if we're going to make a new low, especially if we're going to make a new low, because that's how price action works. We make lower lows and lower highs. Lower highs have to happen. Super early in trading for the month, just 2 days, but we're already starting to kind of roll over after going green. So that's not an auspicious start. Let's move on to silver. So silver daily chart looking better than gold, kind of holding up this little bull flag structure, but still not great, right? Day 12 high, really ugly looking candle, but like this is just chop, right? Look at this whole move, and then we just kind of tried to give it back, but didn't quite. Now we're reversing. The real level to pay attention to here is this right here, like around that $19 level, because that's the low from this move here on Tuesday, the first day of November, that we tried to reverse here, and now it's like fighting back. I mean, we'll see if it can hold. And on the weekly, again, we talked about this, this is week 9. We're still well below the high from last week, so we're still inside the range of last week. This is still a potential false breakout. That's not a good sign. And on the monthly, this is actually, we've had two, quote unquote, well, this is a green month, right? So September was definitely a legit green month. October was a pretty ugly doji month. And now we're inside the range of that month. We got to break out of that range before really anything can happen. So that's important to know about. And finally, we will look at GDX. So GDX has made a lower low on the weekly. And I mean, my God, look at the size of this ginormous daily candle. So, and I tweeted about this. If you're not following on Twitter, definitely take a look at the link in the description. But my God, so we made a high on day 6 from, so you're right. So we had this high on day 6, and then we had this low on day 13, and then we had this little rally that was not able to get back to the day 6 high. It failed on day 22, made a lower low, lower high, right? This is our confirmation of another lower high. My God, what a dramatic candle. Yikes. And these lines, so that you're clear, is this candle here. Like, this candle at one point was pivotal because it was a major low. And so it was a question of how do we trade inside this range? And we kind of bounced around that range for a few days. We then broke out, back tested it. It seemed like it was successful. Back tested it again. That's important to understand, right? This is a back test, and then this is a back test that's a higher low, right? Like, that's telling you that, like, this is suggesting to you that, okay, we're moving higher, right? Like, we didn't even touch it this time. We were able to hold that. But then you get this massive rejection, which is just a great sign. Like, this big candle, this is like a big FU candle. It's just an example. Like, at any point, you can get a big FU candle that's green or red that completely changes things, right? Like, that just, I mean, in this case, doesn't completely change things, but it certainly changes the medium-term picture as it sort of stood. And what that does, multiple time frame analysis being what it is it creates this swing high on the weekly. It makes this a swing high now. And we've drawn this line here because price seemed to want to get to that level. Now it's a question. Maybe it doesn't get to that level, right? Maybe that swing high just remains and we continue to drift lower. This is potentially week 5 of a weekly cycle. That would mean that we got our top on week 1, which sounds crazy, but if it's a really bearish cycle, well, why the hell not, right? And that's your weekly. And then your monthly chart. Oh, God. We are a hair's whisker away from making a new low on the monthly chart. So that would be a low below 22.49. Yikes. That is important to know about, because that's a harbinger. Like, if the gold miners are doing that, then, like, that tells you something about the metal itself. Like, it has to. There's no way it doesn't. That's a really important sign. Yikes. That is a harbinger. I'm just going to set a quick alert here. You're seeing some of the inside game here, but that's important to know about. Okay, so that's the rundown of the metals. Yikes. We'll do a separate video on Dixie just to kind of give that its room to sort of breathe, but this is not looking bullish for this asset class, I guess I would say.